Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeep Jones, the Daydreamer. And today we're going to draw Spider-Man. So, I'd like to just start with a head here and try to start getting an idea of some kind of dynamic pose. There's a whole school of thought on how to do this, and a lot of guys will use the sort of stickman method and sort of figure out a pose with a stickman and then put flesh on the stickman, that sort of thing. I kind of just go straight for the pose. I just randomly try some stuff out and see if anything feels right. So I don't have any particular plan as to where I'm going here. I just know I'm doing Spidey, and I'll likely have him, you know, in typical Spider-Man pose, swinging through the city, shooting some webs, you know, that sort of thing. Now, I mean, this pose has been done so many times. Spider-Man swinging through the streets. So it's always a bit of a challenge to try and do something that's a little bit different, a little bit unique. And I don't know whether I succeed at it or not, but at the very least, you know, it's my take on Spider-Man swinging. Now I'm trying a few different things here, as you can see. And, you know, bending the arms this way and that, till something seems to just feel right, you know. Same thing with the kind of getting the torso in there. I'm starting to get something that feels good. But now the tricky part here, the legs, you know, you get the upper body going, and then it's like, well, what do I do with the legs here? It's tricky. You gotta give him that Spider-Man-ness, that Spidiness to his pose. Because every superhero is different, and Spider-Man is very unique in the way that his body sort of moves. And ever since Steve Ditko first drew him, he's had sort of a spider-like kind of spideriness to his movement. Really limber and agile and twisty. And you know, spiders aren't really that twisty and stuff, so when you think about it, is it really all that spider-like that Spider-Man's so like bendy and twisty in the way that he's being drawn these days? I think my favorite Spider-Man is still the John Romita Spider-Man. Just in terms of iconic, classic look. I do love the Steve Ditko Spider-Man, and of course you gotta give it to Todd McFarlane and for how he sort of raised the bar on drawing Spidey. So here I've come up with a sort of a pose that I like that's kind of similar to a bit of a running pose in a way, but it just feels right somehow. It feels organic, you know. Yep. Spidey. So this is the third installment of my YouTube channel. I hope you're enjoying the channel so far, people. Now this is sped up, as I always say. This drawing took me 2 hours to do, and I've got it sped up to about 40 minutes. So again, almost 3 times the speed. Doing the black lines here, tracing the black over. This is the sketchbook software. which, you know, the thing about sketchbook is it doesn't allow you to draw straight lines or to draw lines directly with the pen. If you want to make them straight, you've got to use this string tool that you can see up in blue in the upper level of the screen here. The blue square that's selected. So you're using kind of what it feels like, dragging a piece of thread almost across the screen. But it makes your lines really straight. If you don't use that, everything, all the lines turn out to be like crinkly and wobbly, like 100-year-old man who's drawing them, you know, shaky, real shaky. It's Spidey's hands here. Of course, the classic Spider-Man web shooter pose there. His fingers pushing the web shooter. I'm kind of all over the place here, going to the torso, the legs. I don't have any, you know, I'm not like a start with the hand guy and work your way down or anything like that. I've been drawing Spider-Man. Well, I started drawing Spider-Man probably when I was 7 years old or something like that. I started drawing, I've said it before, but I drew Batman and Robin. That was my first drawing at 5. But memory's kind of blurry. I don't remember much after that, but I do remember around 7 or 8 years old getting pretty serious about drawing and doing some serious Spider-Man drawing, I remember. Actually, it was funny. I was at my grandparents' cottage, and I had a stack of comic books, and I must have had a couple years practice by now, but although it's like missing time between 5 and 7. I don't know what, I can't remember any drawings between that time period, but I certainly had gotten better because I was drawing, I drew a very good Spider-Man, at least to my memory. And I drew a Green Lantern. I drew a Daredevil, I believe. And I can't remember who else, but I had drawn about a half dozen superheroes, which I began to copy directly from the pages of the comics. I'd find a pose I really liked, and I'd go, oh, there's a cool pose of Green Lantern. Okay, I'll draw that. And the cool thing was, when I had all these characters drawn out, it was Christmas time. We were over at their cottage for Christmas. And when I had all these characters drawn out, I thought, gee, why don't I cut them out? And I cut them all out, making them one notch more realistic, because they weren't confined to the two-dimensional prison of the page. They were now floating free in my 3D reality. So here I've created an edit here because I drew his webs and they just didn't look right. So I erased them and decided to just start them over again. I figured I should probably color Spidey before doing the webs. That would make more sense, because then I'd have to color in between every little web shape, you know what I mean? Too complicated. So, advice, if you're going to color Spidey, color him first, then do the webs. So now, just getting the right proper blue and proper red. Now there's all sorts of different ways you can color Spider-Man in terms of the red and blue, particularly the blue. I've seen really dark, almost black, you know. And then there's like really light blue as well that he gets colored sometimes, almost like a royal blue. I like the sort of midnight blue here, the navy. I think Spider-Man's blue should be dark, because spiders are not like blue, but that dark blue is close to black, so it's like, okay, well that works. And a nice deep red. The eyes are tricky too, particularly with this software, since it's a little tricky drawing with this tool. You get used to it after a while, and it becomes pretty natural, but it's still nowhere near true to your line as a pen. I mean, I could draw with my pen on paper, but the beauty of drawing virtually like this is that you have the undo button, which you just don't have in real life. So it's a little bit of give and take. Anyway, so after I cut out my superheroes that I had drawn, I hung them on the Christmas tree. That was pretty funny. For me, that seemed like a logical thing to do. You know, superheroes belong on a Christmas tree. I had Daredevil and Spiderman, Green Lantern, all hanging from the tree. I wish I could remember the other guys I had drawn, but I don't think it was the Flash or Thor or Batman. I don't remember drawing Batman. Even Superman, I don't think. I don't think I just did 3. I definitely remember Green Lantern and Spider-Man for sure. And pretty sure Daredevil was in there. But my favorite superhero, not in those days, but would eventually become the Flash. By the time I was about 16 or 17, I thought the Flash was the coolest superhero. And if there was any superhero that I could have been, it would have been the Flash. So we'll be doing a Flash drawing here soon enough. Of course, I also loved Spider-Man. Who doesn't, you know? Spidey's just such a good superhero, such a great costume, and such a cool concept, and such a great character overall. You gotta love Spidey. He's kind of the Bugs Bunny of superheroes. Wisecracking, sort of, when faced with the most dangerous situations, he's still cracking jokes. But he's a bit of a Charlie Brown as well, so he's kind of like Charlie Brown meets Bugs Bunny in superhero form. Adding some lighting effects here, just giving it a bit of dimensionality. You can see I'm still not sure what I'm doing with that hand, although I guess I've decided to make it sort of a closed fist type of a hand, holding the webbing. And Spider-Man actually looks pretty cool without the webbing on him. I kind of like the look. Going for a bit of a technique that I learned from John Byrne, which is when you're inking a dark color on the superhero, you sort of fill in the musculature with black. And it's funny, John Byrne was saying that I believe he said he had learned that from Neil Adams, checking out some of Neil Adams' drawings and going, oh, I see what he's doing here, okay. I think it's a really cool effect. Backing out here. I've been thinking about being a superhero, and I've decided that it's time that I came out and admitted to the world, or the dozen or so people listening to this video, at the very least, that I am actually a superhero. Yes, I am the Daydreamer. And about 15 years ago, maybe 20, probably about 15, I realized that I am a superhero. I mean, I was fascinated with superheroes since I was the tiniest little kid. And when I was about, from the age of about 9 or 10 on, I started to sense that I was being observed from outer space. I pictured a satellite, like the Justice League satellite, let's say, 22,300 miles above the Earth. I imagined up in the satellite there was a team working to find the new generation of superheroes on Earth. and they could monitor all the children that were displaying unusual characteristics. There's a small edit here I just did, and you can see Spider-Man, the drawing of Spider-Man in the side there on the right side. That's because I was having trouble figuring out how to do the webbing on the front part of his costume. Now my challenge I've given to myself is to do all these drawings from memory, but it's such an intricate pattern the way his webbing goes on the front there that I thought I better take a quick peek at some Steve Ditko just to remind myself. And it was pretty much what I thought it was, but just to be sure. So anyway, yeah, so I thought that I was convinced that I was being observed from outer space, from up there in the satellite, and that I was going to be recruited. This is probably around when I was about, the peak of it was probably when I was about 12, 13 years old, 14. I used to watch a show called Battle of the Planets. I'm going to do a drawing of Battle of the Planets too at some point. But do you remember those guys? Or any of you people know who Battle of the Planets is? It was a team of superheroes called G-Force, or they also call them Gatchaman. Gatchaman. But it's it's like manga, Japan anime style, whatever you want to call it. And I loved this cartoon. It was a cartoon that was on after school or at lunchtime or something every day. And I was convinced that up in that satellite, up in outer space, was the actual Gatchaman, or as they called it here in Canada, they were known as G-Force. I thought G-Force was up there watching, looking for the next generation of members for their team. And I was quite convinced that I was on their radar and that they were watching me regularly. And so anytime I would, for example, go to my friend's house who lived 3 or 4 blocks down the street, well, I would always run as fast as I could, and I would jump over fences and hedges and things like that, as though there was an obstacle course on the way to his house type of thing. And I was trying to beat my record every time and get faster. So I would run from my house to my friend Denise's house, and when I'd get there, I'd imagine them looking at their stopwatch going, "Wow, look at that, 49 seconds. He's getting better. Yes, he is. Soon he'll be ready for G-Force." I really thought this was going on. I mean, a part of my brain was like, come on, you know that can't be. But another part of my brain was like, yeah, but what do adults know? They're always telling us there's no such thing as this and that, but they're not that smart. They don't seem that smart to me. I don't think they know what's really going on. And at 13 years old, I have to admit, I still wasn't convinced that Santa Claus didn't exist. That was a tough one to let go of. I mean, that there was this guy that every year brings you presents, the things that you want. All you gotta do is write it on a list and be reasonably good, because obviously you didn't have to be super good, because I wasn't a super good kid, but I always got presents from Santa Claus, so he was obviously very lenient. Now Santa Claus was the greatest human being, or mutant, or whatever he was. He was the greatest being on planet Earth, possibly in the whole universe. This guy granted you anything you wanted, and once a year he was there to give it to you. My God, to find out that this guy actually wasn't real, that it was just kind of a joke or something, a fantasy. What a bummer. What a letdown. And it was very tough for me to let go of the idea that this guy just wasn't real. I did not want to buy it. So it wasn't a hard stretch, not much of a stretch from there to believing that G-Force really existed and that I was being considered for the next generation of Gatchaman. Pretty strange. But I mean, I'm sure all you guys are just as strange as me. Leave a comment down below if you feel like it, and let me know what kind of weird fantasies involving superheroes you had as a kid. As long as it's not too kinky, you know what I'm saying? But I'm sure we all... I had a friend who... Well, the same friend, Denis, who I would go to his house a lot. He swore that he was given special rocket sneakers. That his sneakers had little rockets in the back, and they allowed him to run faster, because he was a very fast runner. And but he attributed that speed to his special rocket sneakers. I mean, Denis must have been about 9 or 10 when he was going on about this. Wasn't something he believed by the time he was 13, but... Putting some highlights on Spidey here. This is looking good. I like this lighter blue just to bring out the three-dimensionality of the whole thing. I love working with color and lighting and shading. It's a lot of fun. I think a lot of people want to know like what the trick is to shading, but there's not a major trick to it. It's really just, it's like learning a language. The more you speak it, after years, it just becomes, you become fluent in shading. You understand, it just all makes sense. Like riding a bike or even walking, you don't think about it. You just do it. You understand where things go. No, and that's more or less. You could get really sophisticated, and you can have a model with lighting shining on the model, and then you get it really down. But there's a basic syntax to the whole thing. I mean, you're basically figuring out from which side the light is coming, and the shadows splash out from there. If you're lighting, like in this case, the lighting is coming from the right. If the lighting's hitting the character from the right, his shadows will splash out towards the left. It's almost like the light is pushing the shadows out of the object. So as you can see, Spider-Man's head, the shadow on his shoulder, pushing out. And the shadow on his head is darker on the left side because the light's hitting the right side. Getting into some detail work on that shadow right here. Speaking of the shadow on his head. Trying to keep the consistency of the line. Didn't do such a great job, really. I think my plan was to go back over it with red and redo the webbing, but I forgot to do it. It's okay. Still looks cool. I mean, in typical comic book art, that would just be a black blob. So not sure what I was doing here. More shading. Yep, that's good. I'm glad I brought some more darkness to that area. Very good. Happy about that. I was just thinking as I was looking at that it needs more black. So Spidey's looking pretty good right now, He's really coming along. Webbing's doing good. Adding a little more highlights. Lighting underneath the arm. You see how when you add these little highlights, you really get a feeling that there's some light hitting him. thickening the brush a little bit, or thinning it, not sure what I did there. Creating a little bit more lighting highlights. You want to go in between the lines of the webbing, under the hand, side of the face. See, that light is just blasting him from that right side. Everywhere where there's something protruding from the right, you get some lighting on it. Spiderman. Yep, so anyways, I've decided I began to live as a superhero eventually down the road. I started sort of claiming my superhero-ness. I believe we all have an aspect of ourselves that is a superhero. And I think that's why we're fascinated with superheroes and how they even originated. Because we are, all of us, there is an innate, maybe a dormant aspect to us that is greater than what we've been taught we are. That is sort of a 2.0 version of us, and it exists, and it just needs to be nurtured. They're creating some webbing highlights with red here. So the trick is to find out what your superpowers are. My superpowers are clearly, I realized, well, obviously art, drawing. It's something I do that, let's say, the average person can't do. And it's like flying, I'm not the only one who can do it. In a world where there are superheroes, there's many flying superheroes. Superman, Captain Marvel, Green Lantern. You could even say the Angel from the X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, the Vision, Superman. Did I say that? Probably did. But they all fly. So I'm not saying I'm the only guy that does this. There's a species of superheroes that's what we're good at. We're really good at drawing. But you can use your superpowers, and you can train, and you can get better. Or you can have these superpowers and do nothing particular with them. It's up to you what you do with them, right? Remember Spiderman at first, well, he just tried to make money. But then he realized that with great power comes great responsibility. And he decided to become Spider-Man. And I've decided that if I have these powers, I gotta use them for good. And I have to not ignore them. And I was given this ability for a reason. And I could get just a normal job and stop drawing. I know a lot of people who are musicians or artists, and at a certain point in their life they decided, you know what, I had to get a real job, and I just stopped playing music. I dropped the guitar or what have you, and they sort of gave up on it all. But Spider-Man's hand, very tricky. How does that work? How does the webbing work on the inside of his glove? But yeah, I decided to assume my identity as the Daydreamer. And I started looking back on my childhood. And I realized that's what I did all the time. I just daydreamed. In class, I always looked out the window, staring at the clouds, and I'd dream about being outside and swinging through the rooftops and, doing what I should have been doing, which was training to be a superhero. Instead, I was stuck in this classroom. I was not too happy about that. But you know, I had some good times at school as well. Made some good friends and got bullied a lot though. Overall, school was not a pleasant experience at all. I don't think it did me much good, really, if any. But eventually I managed to unlearn all the stuff that was force-fed into my brain and get back to reality and become a superhero. So now I consider myself to be the Daydreamer, and Jeep Jones is just my secret identity. Not so secret anymore because, like Tony Stark, I'm coming out as Iron Man, except obviously I'm not Iron Man. But I'm not going to hide it anymore. I have been living a superhero life, and I've never stopped really believing that somebody's up there in the satellite looking down on me and checking out my progress. Still, when I'm going from one place to another, I go as fast as I can. Often I sprint, or if I'm on my bike, I zoom on my bike. Just zoom. And I try to do it in record time, and if I see an obstacle, I've got to go over, around, or under the obstacle. Because a superhero's always got to remain in training. And if there's a snowbank, I run up it and I jump off of it. And I always adopt a superhero pose, because part of being a superhero is being graceful. Look at how graceful Spiderman is. You'll notice that superheroes' poses are all very graceful. So you've got to practice that. You've got to practice being graceful. And you've got to practice living an extreme version of yourself and not shying away from it. Acknowledge that you are unique in your abilities. There's no one who draws like me. There are other artists out there, and there's artists who are certainly better than I am. Like there are superheroes like the Thing and the Hulk who are certainly stronger than Spider-Man. He's not saying he's the strongest, but there's only one superhero that has the unique abilities of Spider-Man. And each one of us is absolutely 100% unique. No matter what you do, you draw, you write, you play music, you sing, you sculpt, you do poetry, you dance, theater, whatever art you do. Maybe it's sports. Who knows what it is, what you do that you have a talent with and a passion for? Well, that's a clue to knowing your superpower. What are you passionate about, and what do you have? Not just an ability to do, but a desire to constantly work at it. Like I didn't start off being a really good illustrator. I sucked the very first drawing I did, although I wasn't absolutely terrible, but I was definitely not a good drawer. When I was 5 years old and did my first Batman. But I did have an aptitude for it. I was probably a little bit better than the other 5-year-olds. You probably would have saw my drawing and thought, wow, this kid, he's got something here. But along with that, it's got to be combined with the drive to do it. I just wanted to draw all the time. To the point when I was 14 years old, my parents took me to the hospital thinking that I had mononucleosis because I never left my room. I just sat in my room drawing all day long and reading comics and drawing comics. That's it. Drawing superheroes, reading comics. They're like, he's not going outside, he's not running around. I did my fair share of playing, but I spent so much time just drawing. They thought this kid must have mono. They brought me to the hospital. I had blood tests done on me. Nope, kid's fine, they said. I said, see? I I just want to draw. And you know, I dropped the drawing for 15 years. And now I'm back. I'm drawing again. I should have kept going. But anyways, it's never too late for an early childhood. As Tom Robbins, the author, I think it's Tim Robbins, one of the guys is an ice cream dude, the other guy's an author. But it's a quote from Tom Robbins, I believe. Even cowgirls get the blues, etc. It's never too late for an early childhood. So let's draw Spider-Man, shall we? So find out what it is you do that you love to do. Maybe you just love to read. Well, then read like read the crap out of those books. Read like there's no tomorrow. Now we're doing the cityscape here. And you know, with art, you're saving the world with art. Art is a superheroic thing to do. For one thing, like superheroes, you're not going to get rich off of it. For most of us, there's no money involved. Oh, every now and then somebody might buy a painting off of us or commission a drawing, you know, those are pleasant surprises. But if you're doing art, you're not in it to make money. You are definitely not in it for the money. But everything you create, it contributes to the universe and the energy and the vibe of the universe. It gets put out there and it resonates eternally. It just goes out into the universe eternally. Every song, every drawing. So what you put out in art lasts forever, even if you burn it. You can burn this drawing, but it's been done. It was created, and it has an impact. It has an impact on reality. It's adding beauty, energy, strength, and hope to the world. Courage. You understand, when you're drawing superheroes, when you draw Spider-Man in a mighty pose like this, you're adding something good to the universe. You're adding heroes to the universe. You are manifesting heroes. You are declaring to the universe that there is one more hero molecule in this reality. And that's one more snowball for good. It's like throwing snowballs out there. There's a giant snowball war going on. The good guys versus the bad guys. And every time you do a good work of art, something with good intent behind it, like Spider-Man, every time you do that, you're throwing a snowball for the good side. Now I have no idea what I'm doing here really to create this cityscape. I'm just doing random sort of rectangles and on different layers and hoping to create a feeling of a sort of three-dimensional city in the background. Seems to be working quite well. I've created another purpley sky. I wanted to do a dark blue night sky, but then, you know, you realize that Spider-Man's costume is dark blue, so you want something he'll pop. Make him pop. So purple's always a good color for nighttime. Trying different different colors and shades for the city. Not sure what. Using the ruler tool here. Oh, I've decided to. I felt like these buildings needed a little bit of lights in the windows. You know, feel like a real city at night. I took the ruler tool and just sort of creating random lines here. It's not perfect, but again, I always use the handy excuse that this is art, and art isn't about high realism, it's about expression. And if you're selling yourself off as a high realist, okay, well then you're going to have to stick to that. But I don't sell myself as a high realist. I'm just an artist who likes to draw superheroes. And so I'm approaching superheroes from an artsy sort of angle, not from an cartoon editorial perspective where it's like, no, your windows aren't even, you gotta redo those. Sorry sir, but this is art. Windows will be whatever I want them to be. And you know, I don't have a boss working with me. If I was working for Marvel Comics, it'd be another story. But I'm not. I'm my own boss. Now I wonder, I see there's lots of little lines sticking out. I'm hoping I cleaned up those lines on the building. But hey, if I didn't, it's art. Doesn't have to be perfect. If I did forget to clean them up, I probably will clean them up before I post the final picture. And here's the final drawing with the buildings cleaned up a bit, and I added a moon in the background. And that's about it. Did a few little touch-ups there. Hope you like it. And leave a like, and hey, if you want to see more of these, please subscribe. You know, share, like, and subscribe, as they say. I'll see you in the next video. This is Jeep Jones, the Daydreamer, signing out.